What's up, Mo?
What's up, man?
How are you, buddy?
doing?
Good to see you, man.
It's good to see you.
I'm glad we decided to get together and do this, and talk. And, it's a crazy subject, right? I mean, you and I have known each other since 2012 when I did Meat Eater. You were there filming when I shot my first deer, which is a very important part of my life, man. And then you went on to direct and produce Parts Unknown with our late friend Anthony Bourdain, and we just thought it'd probably be a good thing to come in here and just talk about them.
Yeah, man, and I'm really grateful for it. It's actually, a lot of people have been saying to me like, "Oh, it must be really hard to talk about that. I actually find it kind of the opposite. Like, I want to talk about him. I want to talk about who he was and what that experience was. So, thanks, man.
My pleasure, brother. Did you know him before you guys started working together?
No. I met Tony 10 years ago, and I was called in. He had a DP on his show who, at the last minute, canceled, couldn't go to Egypt. So I got a call like a week before. It's like, "Do you want to go to Egypt with Anthony Bourdain?" I was like, "Fuck yeah, absolutely!"
Right.
And so I met him in Cairo, man. Like,
Wow.
it was kind of like perfect. Yeah.
Holy shit, that's like Indiana Jones type shit.
yeah, exactly.
Is that
man.
the episode when you guys ate a camel?
No, we didn't
That was
eat
a
a
different
camel.
one?
No, but I met him there. We started filming. We were on the streets of Cairo, and it's like all of a sudden it's thrown into these kitchens. We're just like, we're eating pigeon. It's like, go and cover them cooking pigeon, and I had seen the show like maybe once before, but I knew who he was, and I knew what that adventure was.
Right.
And I was so amped for it. And then there was like this seminal moment on that show where we go out and we go ripping across the desert with the Bedouin and go out and cook a goat in the ground, And so as we're driving out over the desert, we're like, well, we need some shots from car to car, right? And I was like, well, I'll get on the roof, and there's like this for some reason, there's a 4-post bed tied to the roof of this Land Rover. And so I get up there and kind of like, latch my arm around it. And these guys take off at, I swear, 80 miles an hour across the desert. I mean.
And you're on a bed?
Absolutely. Absolutely no regard for the fact that like I'm on the roof, shooting. And when we got there, we got to camp. I survived it. I had this big black and blue where I was holding on to the 4-post bed, and I go over and I show Tony, and that was it, man. From that moment on, he was like, I like this guy, and I started going out with him. I started getting invited to do more shows.
Wow.
So
How many
that
years
was
did
it,
you do
man.
it? How many years?
10 years.
Wow.
10 years, yeah.
That's crazy. I didn't realize that Parts Unknown was even. Were you doing No Reservations first?
Yeah, so that was a no reservation show, and then we went to Parts Unknown 5 years ago.
Wow. Yeah. So Parts Unknown's been on for 5 years.
Yeah. And that, that transition, no reservation was great, and it really laid the foundation for what we do, what Tony did. I think it really built an audience and a following for him.
That's where I found out about him.
Right, exactly. It was a great show,
Yeah.
But that transition going on to CNN, going into Parts Unknown, that really changed things. That really opened up a lot of locations and stuff that we didn't have access to before. It opened up, kind of CNN's logistics, Rolodex, and things that we didn't have at the other network. And so that's No Reservations was awesome. We did some incredible shows. Parts Unknowns got really fun.
Yeah, that was on another level. I remember watching the change. I was like, okay, this is more him. Everything from the opening music to the tone of it and the narration.
Yeah, for sure. And then you got to hand it to CNN too. Is like all of a sudden we had these creative partners who were like willing to let him be him. Like willing to let him do a show like the Tokyo show where we're like, really climbing into Japanese subcultures, rope bondage, tentacle porn,
Yeah.
all this stuff
Yeah.
that most network executives are probably a little bit leery of. CNN was
Yeah.
kind of like, go for it, man, be yourself, and let's figure out what this is together.
That's amazing. That really is amazing. But one of the things that really made that show was Tony's narration, because the narration gave you a sense of the way his sort of passion and enthusiasm for the world and for various aspects of cooking and travel and food and culture. Like, you got it through his own words,
Yeah, I think that's, it may be in some ways the most important aspect of the show. He is, after all, a writer, right?
Yeah.
And that is how he experienced the world. But actually making the shows and the technical part of actually making the shows, once you'd go through and kind of edit the show, none of that voiceover was in at the rough cut phase. And you send it out to him and get his writing back and record that VO. And I keep describing it as like that kind of Dr. Frankenstein lightning bolt to the temples kind of moment where like the monster rises.
Yeah.
It would really just bring the show to life. So this kind of carcass that was laid out in rough cut form on the table all of a sudden just gasped and jumped up, and it was really beautiful, like, to see that and to have, as a director, as a producer, as a creative, at any level, to have that kind of power.
Yeah.
To have his voice and his writing and his introspection and thoughts and, what a powerful force to work with.
Well, it was a brilliant design, the way the show was put together. That narration really did make it something special and different from all those other kinds of shows, because his articulate and insightful and poetic and artistic view of these things, that he had this infectious passion for things. He completely changed the way I thought about cooking. I'd always thought about cooking as, oh, this guy knows how to make delicious food. Oh, this place has good ribs. And then when I saw his show, when I saw Parts Unknown, I went, oh, it's an art form. It's just an art form that you eat.
Absolutely.
It's just a temporary art form.
Yeah, and even beyond that, it's an art form that's taking and incorporating all of these greater kind of macro social elements of, where you are, the history of where you are, what people did for a living, what people's ancestors did for a living. It's rooted in so much more. And what I think, ultimately, it was like we kind of joke around a lot and say, like, yeah, it's a food show. It's not a food show, But the reason that worked, I think, is because of what you're saying. And, that food is an art form that incorporates all of these other aspects. And so it can be a jumping point off for exploration into anything you want to talk about.
Yeah.
I talked about the history of a place, the politics of a place, the religion of a place, all of these things that inform who people are. Well, that's all writ into the cuisine of a place or an area,
Yeah, and he was into stuff that wasn't necessarily even like high dollar items. He was into like street food.
Definitely. Yeah.
It wasn't just the finest French, bistros where these celebrated world famous chefs were cooking these bizarre small plate sort of masterpieces. No, he would love street tacos.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and again, I think that was kind of like a whole new kind of fresh take on looking at food,
Yeah.
It's like, it's easy to, to look at these kind of high-end French preparations, these highly talented, highly trained French chefs. And there's tremendous beauty in that,
Yeah.
and all of those other things we talked about. But to look at the woman on the corner that's, that's making, the best, lingua tacos, like that was revolutionary. And then the realization that all of that greatness, all of that nuance, all of that flavor, contained right within there. That was an access point to it as well. It's just an access point that everyone can afford, that everyone can go and right place at the right time. I think that people, like, it seems like the culture at large was ready for that like experience in food, and ready to kind of chase that, because now, I mean, that's all anyone wants now.
Well, I think it's because of him. I really do. Because, I mean, I'm sure that he changed the way I look at things in terms of food. Yeah. And I think he had that effect on many people. I mean, you think about how many years was Parts Unknown for 5, and then No Reservations for 9?
No Reservations, yeah, for about 10, and then there was Cook's Tour before that.
Right. So
the original.
All told, a decade and a half of his influence
years
on people's food choices and just appreciation for food. I mean, I know personally I've had some great meals in restaurants, but some of my favorite meals have been like stepping outside of a bar. You know, it's 1:30, you got a little buzz on, and some dude's got a taco truck, and you're like, oh, baby, what do you got over there, my friend? Or in New York, you know, it's late at night, and there's a falafel cart, and some guy's got incredible kebabs. Like, oh, there's something about street food, man.
Absolutely, man. And yeah, I kind of keep like a loose running list of my favorite meals, you know, and some of them are on the show, and some of them are not on the show, and I'd say, you know, most of them are that, you know, most of them are accidentally stumbling into some place where someone's doing something completely awesome that isn't, you know, some massive 26-course tasting menu, you know.
Right.
And I think it's also about, you know, it's about place, you know.
Yeah.
It's about where you are, the context of where you're eating, what it smells like, what it sounds like, what it looks like, you know, who you're with, you know.